begin to ask you several linguals and questions, and you're wondering, I just want to code, I just want to write scripts. Why are you telling me? Why are you asking me these other questions? Why are these things important? Is because in an organization, the type of people they want, the type of mindset they want. And that's why in some organizations you see that they sort of act in a particular way. Perhaps you will see innovation as some of their core values. Some of them is customer centricism. Some of them it is integrity. In organizations, they have different things they represent. So aside you being good technically, we look out for other aspects of you just to understand, what you've been doing so far and how it correlates with our core values. So, without further ado, I'll just move into the questions. Okay, but then let me just make a quick description of what interviews should do. Interviews are done to gauge a candidate's personality, right? Strengths and weaknesses to handle the role. And then understand what to do the job. Sometimes the interviews are conducted to decide how well the candidate can fit into the company's work culture. So when you think of interviews that way, you begin to see yourself as, okay, so these people just want to test my strength, my weaknesses, and they are looking at how I fit into this organization. When you begin to see interview that way, there's a mindset shift that happens, and that mindset shift begins to draw you into internalizing the interview processes, questions that are being asked. So the first question that is very popular is, tell us about yourself. And in fact, even experienced hires sometimes, they don't do so well with this question. Now, this question is quite simple, but a lot of people fail it. So it's not time to give your full employment or personal history. Instead, just give a pitch. Something that is compelling, something that is concise. So, for example, think of it this way. Think of having just 2 minutes to talk about your experience. You're inside an elevator and you see someone that, when you get this job that you have been looking for so far, and you just add an audience with the MD, and you're supposed to impress this person in less than 2 minutes by telling the person about your experience. What would be the most important thing to do? So, Lily Zhang's formula to me is very good. I use it myself. And she thinks that when you're doing this, just explain from the present to the past and then the future. So easily, I say, all right, currently I'm a senior business partner. In the past, I've been doing this for the past 10 years. I've been in HR for the past year. I've done outsourcing. I've been a generalist. I've done organization development. I've designed interview instruments and the likes. Then, what is the future? So, deep into that. Of course, you could use your technical jargons around it. But then the future would now be, my eventual career plan is to be a global thought leader in creating a suitable environment for talents, or creating or connecting employees' performance to company's profitability. Let me give another hook that would help you in this space. The end of all your pitch most times should tie to profits. Organizations are not, except you are going to interview in a charity firm. Organizations are usually about profit, and when you speak that language, they tune to you quicker. They're not into charity, so they want to see how you view yourself and how you see yourself in the next 5 years. So you go from your present, your past. You could talk about, I graduated from where I studied and afterwards moved into develop myself on that skill. Well, I could use this, I could use that. And my eventual career path is to build models to help businesses thrive, or to build customer-centric model, or to build effective model, or to build models that would solve the energy problems, or to build financial models that would solve banking issues. or to build financial models that would solve customers' complaints by, assigning them to trends and tasking to it. That's where you're beginning to speak their language, and it looks like, oh, I think I could make do with this. Then let's move to the next question quickly. Our next question is, what do you know about our company and why do you want to work here? Now, let me give you a freebie or gist into that. I could tell you for free. Most times when people interview tech talents, they know you didn't research their company. You never did. You're just about your skill. Nothing really shows up in interviews. Because you don't pay attention to those organizations, and at that moment, they are the ones that own the job. They are deciding in their minds, fine, I have people to fill these roles, but I need somebody that connects with my vision, that looks like people that are here already. So interestingly, sometimes interviews are not made because that role is vacant. Interviews are made sometimes because they are thinking this role will soon be vacant. So how do I get somebody that has the same mindset that could fit into that? So not all organizations are desperate to fill roles. So take your time to study the company's mission, the company's vision, which are simple taglines. 1, 2, 3 punchlines, and you're done. But then, as much as you're doing that, get to understand that company's strategy itself. I mean, when I mean strategy, it means sometimes the organizations will go to say, oh, these are our acronym. These are the businesses we are into. Because of this particular acronym, you see it on their website. It's a public knowledge. It's not something that is hidden. But then again is that try to look at their latest achievements, their latest accomplishments. Oh, by the way, I want to say I appreciate your organization. You did this, you did that on the award you just got, or you did this last week, or I was watching the MD on the news when he announced that this, oh, your stock index or your share index has improved so far. That is if you know about it, right? Things you are comfortable with that you know about that organization, you then share it, which is, you then share eventually how this aligns with, oh, I like the fact that your organization prides its integrity. One of your national core values, integrity, which is my personal core value as well. So it aligns with my personal core value. I like the fact that your organization likes volunteering. I've seen volunteer in your organization thrive on several projects, and it's aligns with my value. I've always liked volunteering. So that alone begins to answer why you want to work there. You talk first about the company, then you draw a similarity between the company and yourself. And that's how to answer that question. So, and that value you're drawing with yourself means that you're tying that to the company's success itself. I move to the third question, which is, how do you stay organized and manage your time effectively? Interestingly, a lot of tech talents fail this one because they say, well, I do most of the tasks assigned to me, and when those tasks are not assigned to me, I pick up assignments and I start working on it and the likes. If you had spoken that way in time past, now you know why you didn't get that job. So let's look at it in a different light. The first thing is prioritization, which is I determine the most important task and focus on those first. Mind you, what they asked you is that, how do you stay organized? Meaning that they're trying to draw into your mindset on meeting up with tasks and how you're able to, arrange yourself to meet up within timelines. So the first is I determine the most important task and focus on those first, which is prioritization. So they will ask you, how do you determine those? Is to first have a conversation with my line manager to understand at the moment, and to then prioritize that. The next is I have a to-do list where I create my daily and weekly task, which is actionable. It could be maybe your to-do list may not be a paper. It may be, oh, it's on my notepad, oh, it's on Microsoft Planner, oh, it's on Trello. It could be any of those things. So I just arrange my to-do list on that space, in my own workspace. It could be on what's this place called again? Any app that you currently use in your organization. Then, of course, time blocking. So if there is an all-important task I need to complete, I then block my time for that duration so that I can complete it within the record time, right? So the next thing is calendar management. You could talk about using your digital calendar to schedule appointments and schedule deadlines and reminders for yourself, because it will always give you reminders. Oh, you spent 2 minutes, 15 minutes in the next meeting and the likes. Then you could talk about how you minimize distractions around you, such as, finding a quiet place, maybe turning off notification, or for you, if yours is loud music, right? And that helps you move away from distraction. You could say, I get my headset and I move to an environment in the office where I'm able to concentrate on my task. Then they will ask you questions around. So how about collaboration? You say, at that time, that task is important to me. And if I need to collaborate, I would reach out to any of my team members. You understand? So then you now talk about regular breaks, because as much as you're working, you're human too, you're not a machine. So it could be, I take short breaks to recharge and maintain focus. That's another thing that keeps me, that's another thing that helps my focus and my attention, right? So I move to, why do you want this job? So come on, it's not for the payments, right? But there's a tricky way to answer that, which is, for example, you say, I just love to delight the customers. When I'm able to solve complex problems with my scripts, I'm excited, which is true for all of you. Because just imagine the first line of script you wrote and it was successful. You remember how happy you were. Now, remember recently when you wrote a script and it wasn't running, it wasn't executing well. You went back again, you came back, it was really bothering you. You couldn't do any other thing. Until you're able to remember, I wasn't supposed to add a semicolon. Yeah, look at me. Then you came back and you fixed that. You were happy. So just interpret that to this. I want this job because I just love to write scripts. I love to code. I love to collaborate. I love to solve problems with it. When you exude such passion, the other person then sees that, it's more than just the money to you. You just love your job, right? Then, you could share why you love the company as well. So I love the fact that this company is customer-centric. For example, there is a growing company, internationally that, they have some of their products in Nigeria. And myself and somebody were reviewing and we said, interestingly, this company is getting big, but go watch them. If they don't change their approach in the next 5 years, somebody else may take over because they are not customer-centric. So in that kind of organization, you will not find maybe someone like me working there for long, because I really don't like the way they treat customers. To me, that is important. It's my core value. It's one thing I like, right? So the same thing about you, you could then discuss what you love about that company with you. And I like the fact that this organization too loves to solve problems, right? Then again, is interact with some of their softwares or products or services as well to know a bit or one or two things about them, interact with them. So when you're coming to such interview, you could talk about a particular product or theirs itself. How do you handle conflicts with co-workers or supervisors? Interestingly, you always have this conflict, not in terms of everybody's throwing chairs or everybody is saying, I don't go agree, or throwing placards somewhere. No, not that. Conflict in terms of disagreements in perspectives. You're not aligning in perspective, right? The first is, I listen actively, or I listen to understand what the problem is. When I discover that there is a conflict or disagreement or misunderstanding of my workplace, I listen actively to understand what the problem is. And what that means is there's a difference between listening to give feedback and listening to understand what the problem is. When you listen to understand what the problem is, you will then get what the person might not be saying. That's the only way you can say, are you by chance this? The person said, oh yes, exactly what I meant, because they don't understand your jargon, so they may say a lot of things around you. Then the next is ensure to communicate by expressing my viewpoints respectfully, right? Which is using I. So for example, when I'm addressing issues like that, I could use words like, when you do this, I feel like. Now I've listened, then I'm communicating my viewpoint or my point of view. Then, I seek to collaborate so that I can find a common ground. Of course, all of you do all of these things. Remember that time you're working on the project, you're collaborating with someone, and person says, no, do it this way. I said, no, I want to do it this way. Then eventually you just said, okay, let me try this as well, so that the product can just go live. That was what you were doing. You're collaborating, right? Then, compromise. So because you've negotiated, somebody has to move back at some point. Somebody has to move forward at some point. Or both of you has to move back. In a situation where I'm unable to control that, I escalate it to a neutral party, which could be my supervisor or my HR business partner or the HR department itself. That's way. So I'm not saying you could use all of these things together, but listening is very important. When you say, oh, I listen to understand what the problem is, and I ensure to, negotiate what can work for both parties in the spirit of collaboration, and then when some of these things are beyond what I can control, I then escalate to a neutral party, which could be my line manager or the HR representative involved in that. So that answers that question for you. Question 6 is, what can you bring to the company? Which is relatively talking about your values. I currently do this, I currently do that, I currently do this. In time past, I was able to do this and this. Now, one of the great tricks around this question is, and the easiest way to kill it is when you are discussing those things you've done before with numbers. So I remember building a model that generated up to something millions, up to something thousands, or reduced the turnaround time, or by 60%, by 20%, by 10%, by 5%, which means we're able to complete a day before the given timeline. That, to us, means something, that this person is able to manage himself or herself and is able to replicate such values over here. Because truth be told, tech talents are doing a lot. Interestingly, some people hardly sleep because you really want to get those things done. But you're not able to equate that in your words. Like, mention that to say, oh, I was able to then do this. Eventually, it made my work easier. Before, I was going to bed late in the night, but now I'm able to finish up at least before the closing of business so that I can focus on personal development. That means a lot to anyone. So the key here is to connect your skills, your experience to what the company needs. Just look at the transferable skills from what you've done in the past, work from what you've done in the past, right? Why should we hire you? Same thing, actually, same question. Look at what you've done before, right? Bring a combination of your skills, your experience, your personal qualities. So some of you, maybe when you study computer science in school, bring that. That's a uniqueness. Some of you study things that made you had interaction with people. So maybe you study sociology to say, oh, I'm able to empathize with people because I understand how easy, how complex it is to relate with the society. So for example, some people started a career doing something else before they came into data analysis, right, or analytics. You could then bring that into your narrative to say, oh, maybe you did customer care, right? In time past, I did customer care and interacted with customer. So I understand how it feels for the customer contact center agents answering the call on the other end. My job is to make his or our work easier, such that they won't have disgruntled customers every day, and it will save the company a lot of cost and increase our profitability? You see, you just answered that. So this aspect, they want to see your problem-solving abilities. Now, for people that could not remember most of the things I've said word for word, because, it's easier for me to then bring some of these words. Think of a time when you're able to solve a problem. Remember, the question is, why should we hire you, right? Think of a time when you're able to solve a problem. That shows that you're a fast learner because you observe things around you. So then you start telling that story. So tell with the, okay, I'm supposed to say this at the end, right? But tell with the start techniques, which is situation, task, then what were you able to action, and then what was the result? So situation. I remember a time when the task we're supposed to action. Then I noticed and developed a script or a lot. Eventually, that script was able to shorten, increase, move, place things, do things faster. Or I remember that I didn't know how to go about it. Then I Googled, went on this, got this script, called a friend, did this, so they want to see how you're able to quickly solve problems around things, right? So what are your strengths and weaknesses? Now, this one is a very tricky one. A lot of tech people do not even know how to answer this, even everybody actually, right? Because you can talk about your strength, but it's difficult to talk about your weakness, right? Your weaknesses are, don't just say, I don't have any weakness. Sometimes it could be, now this could apply to a lot of data analysts because you're very, very meticulous. Any wrong line of code could execute something wrong, right? So you have to look into each call, be meticulous. So you could say, oh, I noticed that I'm overly meticulous. However, and which sometimes cause delays in completing tasks. However, I've actively worked on improving my time management skills and prioritization techniques to overcome this weakness and become more efficient. Can you see how I played it back again? You have mentioned that weakness, but then you said this is how I'm correcting it. For example, yours could be that, oh, so one of my weaknesses is recently it's been it's one of my weaknesses is not being social enough. So, but talk about what you are doing to help that situation, which is recently I have joined a community of people where I'm able to interact faster and better, or train teenagers, or I'm volunteering to be in a network where, so a network like this, for example, where I then collaborate with other data analysts, or I recently attended a training, or I went on YouTube to view a training on societal awareness or improving on my interpersonal relationship, where I learned that. You see how you've turned that weakness to a great advantage. So look at, when you mention it, look at things you're doing to help that aspect, right? What's a time you disagreed with a decision that works? What is a time, or what's a time you disagreed with a decision that was made at work? When was that time you disagreed with a decision that was made at work, right? So they want you to explain how you handle disagreements, how you take it. So let me give an example. I like to quote Zan. Learned early on in my professional career that it's fine to disagree if you can back up your hunches with data, right? Again, is that, this works in a lot of multinational foreign firms, but Nigeria, let's come back home to Nigerian companies sometimes. Sometimes you see people argue with you on what you know already. And then you really want to know, okay, so how do I go about this? Interestingly, one of those things you could do is I then go back to bring data, facts, presentations, study links that backs up my point, and I share. In cases where the disagreement still lingers, for the purpose of collaboration, I document it and I go ahead with instruction. Keep a bad attitude towards it, because I know eventually the success of the team is my success. So which means if they followed my advice, good though. If they not follow it, no problems. I will still work on. But when they now need my help, maybe we now got stuck in between, I'm happy to still help the team, because the team success is my success. Okay, you see how to play that? It works all the time. Now, can you tell me about a time when you faced a difficult challenge at work and how you overcame it? Very similar to the previous question, but there is a trick around it. So this one is more around difficult challenge at work. Is more around maybe timeline, for example. For example, I was given a tight deadline to complete a complex project. So how did you do that? Prioritization. I prioritized it to be completed. Given time frame. It's called minimum viable project. Viable project. What was those things that I could quickly do, at least to get that thing done? So, for example, somebody says build a house within this time. You know that, oh, I may not be able to do this or do this or do that, but I was able to at least complete a few structures, and the rest of them were still maybe the carcasses. But if somebody comes to that space and then sees where this thing had gotten to, at least they can still lay their head over there. So, okay, you tried. So continue on the rest. So it's more like prioritizing. Prioritizing helps you. The reason some of us take longer time on a project is because we don't prioritize. We want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do that at a time. Write the task down. Which one can I do faster or get done faster than the other? Then begin to arrange them as the sequence comes. Then that's what we call resource allocation. Now, after you have discovered all of these things, then you then talk about how interestingly some of you are doing that already. And how you do that is that when you discover how difficult that project is, you then talk to one of your friends in maybe project management, or you talk to one of your friends in the business. Please tell me more about this project again. Or then you call the product manager. What you were simply doing at that time was you were prioritizing and you were doing resource allocation. That's the English around it. Then that helps you to manage. So I created a detailed project plan. So aside from what the project manager gives me on a project, I mean, for organizations that have project managers that work on all your projects, or business analysts or scrum masters, but you could then talk about your own personal, detailed project plan to break down some of these things into pieces and then to meet up to specific deadline. Then you discuss around your problem solving approach and all of these things, and how you're able to stay positive and focused, adjusting your approach when necessary. Okay. What's the time you disagreed with a decision that was made at work? Okay, I just duplicated this one again. No, please. So I'll cover for that. 12 is tell us about a time you failed. Now, this is a difficult one. Tell us about a time you failed. Now, but let me cover for the 11. So the question I wanted to type initially was, what's your greatest achievement so far? Now, at this time, think about the achievement that is very, very related to the job you're applying to. Don't think about it as when you are in customer care or when you were in this one. Think about the one that is relevant to that job. So that's why I would advise always read the job description. It has a lot of details around. Always read it. Because when you're referring to it, they can then correct you, say, oh, no, this is what this meant. Oh, you got that correct. Right? So what was that greatest achievement you did at work? So think through it. Which of your projects makes you happy to date? That every time you discuss it, you're so happy. Interestingly, when you start discussing that project, something lights up in you. The person on the other end can view the excitement from wherever you are, even if it's a voice call, right? We could tell with them talking that, I enjoy tech HR, I enjoy this, I'm passionate about it. So the same way your voice, your intonation, everything about you will change. If that interview has been boring since, something about you comes up. So ensure to think through that project and then, share that. But interestingly, I would like to say, because you're data analyst, so have numbers to back up some of these things you're saying, so it will help you a lot. So I move to the next question. Tell us about a time you failed. Now, be honest about this. Make sure you pick a real actual failure you could speak honestly about. Be honest with it. For instance, as a manager, I consider it a failure whenever I'm caught by surprise. I strive to know what's going on with my team and their work. Then situate your story in relation to that definition and explain what happened. Now, so finally, don't forget to share what you learned. So this is it. You talk about a genuine, honest one. Now, all of this I've been saying, ensure that it is real, because some people are trained to pick your lies. They know it. They know that your words are not adding up. That's why some questions are asked. It's the same question. If you observe, I kept saying, similar to the first, but they're asking in different lights. If you keep lying about it, you will not forget what you said initially. Because you are talking, but remember, they are listening. So, share the honest situation that happened, that you felt like, this was really a failure. But how did you meet up? It will be, you could now say things you learned from that. What you learned from that part. So, for example, let's say something happened to me and somebody goofed. It wasn't my fault, but they then pinned it. All of those things are cool. So I shared that experience. Everybody hears about it. I was like, They said, what I've learned about that is quality check for myself. Every time I'm about to go live on any project, that I do a thorough and quality check by myself. And then I call someone else to check in with me. That is what I've learned from that project. Somebody begins to say, I think this guy is a good learner. I think this lady is a good learner. He then adds up together. Oh, interesting. Why are you leaving your current job? A lot of people will say career advancement. Which other one again? A lot of things, a lot of interesting one, but here's it. Here's the trick around it. So it's tough. It's really tough. But this is it. For example, I'd love to be part of product development from the beginning to end. I know I would have that opportunity here. Now, did you see that? I did not refer to his previous organization or a previous organization by saying, in my previous organization, I was unable to. No. It's like gossip. Anybody you gossip about today, you will gossip about the other person tomorrow. So everybody is careful. See, this one that's even talking about his organization or organization in a bad light. I don't think I want this person. Right? So, but how to face it is, read that job description very well. Look at what is unique that you don't currently do, but excites you. So take, for example, I'm excited that this job reports to so, because I've always wanted to have close proximity with the team lead or with the unit head. Somehow they will ask you, but if you can complete that statement, for you, you'd say for you, it would mean that I can closely watch someone and learn leadership skills from him or her. You could look into the job description and then it shows that, maybe they describe the organization and the likes. It's a forward-thinking organization. I've always wanted to work with an innovative organization. Recently, you floated this software or this or that. And that software excites me a lot. I'd like to have a first-hand experience of working on it. And I love their product lines. And every time I interact with them, there seems to be a consistency of innovation. I'd love to be part of it. You see, I didn't talk about my former job. I didn't talk about my company. I simply just talked about your organization and what I'm coming to do. So pick that job description and read through it to understand, okay, what is unique about this job that I didn't have the opportunity before? Because somebody will now then sit down. I see that you have scoped us in code. So it doesn't mean that you're not doing that in your current organization. Now, that's another tricky one. Oh, in my current organization, I have been empowered to do a few things. However, the aspect of innovation excites me about your organization. Did you see that? I didn't talk badly about my organization, but at the same time, I've thrown it back to you again, or back at you again. That's how it should work. Now, in a case where you are fired, be honest enough. See, sometimes all these communities are quite, everybody, get a job today in Google. There's somebody that knows somebody, that knows somebody, that knows somebody here in Nigeria that will Google you, or will know, or they will engage, or they will ask questions. So be very honest. Oh, unfortunately, because even the organization, big organization, some organization just fired the entire people analytics team as of 3 months ago. So the people people lose their jobs, right? So it's okay to just say, oh, I'm sorry, my department was closing up and most of us were let go of, or most of us, I was let go, or most of us were fired in that process. And, but what I've learned from that situation is, did you see how I drew that? Or you could say, but since then, I have not given up on my personal development. Recently, I volunteered to a community to work for free on a particular project. Or currently, I freelance. And I've been able to work on this project, that project in the past 3 months. Did you see how you turned that around? It's very important for you to always have, all those things to turn it around. When you're talking about those bad parts, always just discuss the good part around it. All right. The last one, should be my last question here. Okay, so remember it's your interview as well. So at the end of, so it would be best if you ask questions at the end of the interview. Please do ask questions. Please do. Why it is important is that organizations are trying to know, as much as this fits you, you're a good candidate, how do you think of us? So let your questions border around the job itself. You understand? Let it border around the job itself to say, oh, during the lockdown, a lot of organizations were asked to work remotely. However, after the lockdown, we're asked to come back to the office. How does it work in your organization? How do you monitor performance? Those kind of questions. How do you monitor performance here? Oh, in my former organization, we use KPIs. Do you use OKRs here? Or in my former organization, we use KPIs and OKRs. What do you use here? What works for you here? Those are questions. And that one is that there is a decision. So recently you moved from your app, and I'm trying to check what difference it makes. Right? I know this new app works faster, but in that transitioning, what are you looking at achieving in the next 2 years with this new app? You get? Those things are interesting. Oh, recently Nigeria's inflation rate increased to 22.5, and people believe it's still higher than that. How have you been able to mitigate or help employees cope with this situation in your organization? Now, you are really asking some probing questions. In the next 5 years, what does this organization want to achieve? You get? So it is, they start saying, oh, this person too is interviewing also. then you can tell the interviewers that you need some time to think about things. It's okay. You may not have all the right answers. It's okay to say, oh, at the moment, I do not have the right answer for that, but if you give me some time, next time we'll be meeting, I'll share with you what I know about this. I know about this. It's okay. It happens to the best of people. The other aspect is sometimes as well too, when people are asking you questions and they are too fast or their words are not clear, it's okay to say, do you mean to say? Are you saying, and while you're saying that, you're buying time for yourself to really understand. Seek to understand the questions, not to reply at first. Always understand. Okay, so if I got you right, your question is, okay, are you implying, do you mean, or in context? All of those things begins to help you figure your answers around things. So, lastly, I'll repeat this one. Use STAR techniques, which is when you ask questions, specific situation, explain it. Task, action, and result. Ensure your answers are always straight to the point and short. Keep it short and simple. On this note, I'd say thank you for having me. It's been enjoyable, and I'm prepared to answer questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Femi,
Thank you too.
human business partner. We're grateful having you on board. I mean, I've received comments. A lot of people are enjoying the webinar. All right. So, guys, at this point, I don't know if you have any question for Femi. Please feel free to unmute your mic and ask him the question. Thank you. Please feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question so Femi can take it. After which we'll move to the next segment.
Okay.
Okay. There you go.
Hi, Femi. Thank you so much. So how about there are situations where we don't have, maybe you don't have access to organizations, especially when people are shooting at random and really don't have access to maybe much information about the organization. They're just casting their nets in the pool, in the ocean. So to such people, right? I mean, what would be your goal? Like, what would be your advice to them? Maybe don't have that specific organization they want to apply or pitch. They're just shooting sporadic, they're shooting wide. What would be your advice for them? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So let me say how I understand your question. So people that are job hunting and they do not have any organization in mind. So how do they go about it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Especially when they are starting out, because I faced that issue too when I was getting started. Like I didn't even have that organization. I didn't even have a specific organization. So I mean, to them now, yeah.
Great question. So the first is you need to first ask yourself, what sector am I looking at? What sector am I familiar with, for example? When you know the sector you're familiar with, it's easier for you. You're halfway there. So let's say somebody just finished school or a boot camp, and the only sector he knows or she knows is the banking sector, for example. You then go on LinkedIn, search for all of those people that you think work in a bank that are data analysts. Go check their profile. That's the first thing I advise any professional, even at any category. Go check their profile. Read through it. You'd see a pattern. You'd see a regular pattern. That pattern that, I think this organization fancies certification. Or this organization fancies experience in this. there's a certain pattern that exists in those organizations. And from there, click follow, click like, click all those things. Observe their posts. For example, people just come to Chigozie's page, for example, on them. So I say, you are the CEO for so. I need a job in so. He's wondering, well, if I needed people to come and fill a space, I know how to search for them myself, right? But let's say you say, oh, you now sent him a message to say, oh, I read your last article on this and this and that. Quite insightful. The person then feels like, interesting. See? Then, then you talk about this organization and then share with him how you can be of value. That is a plot twist itself. So this time around, you're pitching yourself. Well, this is what I've noticed about your organization. This is how I can be of value. Easily, what that would do to you, by the time you send that to say 100 people, at least 2 of them will reply. All of them may not respond, truth be told, because they have a lot that they are working on, obviously. But at least 2 of them respond and they will ask you, oh, so what can you do? Oh, can I schedule for an interview? Are you interested in an internship or the like? I remember even the same thing in HR as well too. When I started, I have a science background. When I wanted to come into HR, I started sending, it's called cold email and cold chat to people to say, I would like to give this value, give that value. I wouldn't mind working for free or interning in the organization for the next 3 months. 3 months. So I give myself, in those days, I was telling them, I want to come and intern with you for 2 years. I don't mind interning with you for 2 years. I just knew that the greatest thing you can do to me, just give me that avenue, 1 month to prove myself, or 2 months or 3 months to prove myself. Let it just be on my CV. You say that I prove myself to you well, or from there, I now have insight into that sector. So the first thing is always make yourself available, not the money at first. It may not be, all of us know that in tech space, when you're starting, you may start very small. But then as you begin to grow in experience and knowledge, it comes exponentially, right? So be interested, you're really interested in that person, its post, is that space, then genuinely interested in their product, then tell the difference. Lastly, for example, a UI designer wanted to get a shot with an organization. What the person did was, the organization's new app that they really liked, they redesigned the landing page and shared it with them and tagged a few of their senior people and said, this is my vision for this organization. I wish this button were to be here. This one is here. This one is there. Guess what? The guy got an interview. So when you're doing a cold call, ensure to be genuinely interested in them and I like the values you're contributing. I hope that answered your question, Abba.
Yes, it does. Very practical, very applicable. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Femi.
Thank you. Thank you, Oluwatoyin. I see your message. Thank you so much. Thank you, Felix. Thank you so much. Thank you, Samson. I'm grateful. Thank you, Taufik. I'm grateful.
Hello, Mr.
Right. Thank you, Paul.
Hello, Mr. Oluwafemi.
Oh, hi, sir. Who's speaking?
This is Taufik.
Oh, Taufik, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, I want to comment on the first expo you just gave. I have somebody that have a testimony to that, a very close friend that have a testimony to that. It really works and it helps a lot. And my question precisely is, I want to take myself as an example. Somebody that is transitioning from although I work I'm transitioning into data analyst. So in my, let's assume, and like in an interview, can I bring the experience I have in my being a net admin into the interview of a data analyst interview? Like, what have you been doing? What are your experience? What are your achievements in your past or past discipline? Like your past, you understand what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're trying to say perfectly well.
So
So you're saying, okay, you want to continue?
yeah, I say, can I bring that experience into that interview?
Into this current, yes,
Yeah.
provided that experience is applicable, but ensure that you are not carried away with that experience, that you are not then talking about data analysis itself. So think of it this way. So say I studied a course that is difficult, maybe computer science, and I found myself searching for an HR job because I've gone maybe for a boot camp or the likes. I could then talk about, in my previous experience, I remembered when we were supposed to attend to a customer and do this and do this and do that. Eventually, we did that. The customer was delighted, which then made me realize that in human resources as well, you have to manage internal customers, which are fellow employees, for them to have good satisfaction in working for that organization. That way, I've mentioned my former organization, I've mentioned this one. I've just told you that I have a transferable skill. So the first thing you need to map in your mind is, what is the transferable skill in being this my former job to this new one? Then mention that, map that transferable skill to this one, and then answer through it. Sometimes those transferable skills are soft skills. Sometimes. For example, let's say what you're doing is, after you maybe used to answer calls to resolve issues for customers. Before you became a data, you went to a bootcamp, became a data analyst, and you've been developing yourself personally. You could then narrate an ordeal when you started and you realized how finishing or completing tasks on behalf of people, how it excites them, and they're able to return to your organization to keep doing business with you. Then you then tie that to this space to say, I learned that is one basic element that I'll be bringing as a data analyst to play. For me, it's not just about crunching numbers. I am aware that I'm providing a service that should gladden the heart or make another customer satisfied. With that, you have created a relationship between your former, just like in Power BI, when you create a relationship between key IDs, you've created a relationship between your former and the new one. Or just like SQL as well too, where you have your primary. So you look at what is similar to your former one, work out the logic, and then don't forget, bring it back so that somebody will not say, I think you are more interested in your former job than this new one. You understand? So link it. It's very important. Does that answer your question anyway, Tafik?
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Tafik.
At this point, it's a big thank you to Femi. Femi, I mean, it's been nice having you on board. You've seen the comments. I mean, you see from the comments in the chat, as well as from the questions people are asking. I mean, clearly it shows that it has been impactful. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And when next we call on you, I trust you will oblige. Correct?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
So, yeah, at this point you can leave so we can continue in our next segment. Thank you so much. Bye.